Hey, Tomoya-san, do you remember your English test scores from junior high school?
Yeah, I think I was slightly below average, to be honest.
Oh, really? That's not surprising in Japan, though, is it? I mean, many students struggle with English, especially with speaking and writing skills, even though they do study English for many years, as you did.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's something we see often in Japan, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's jump right in.
Hey everybody, CrossTalk FM is an English and Japanese bilingual freestyle podcast. In this podcast, we explore some cross-cultural themes and trends. I'm Andrea.
Hi, I'm Tomoya. このポッドキャストは英会話スクール&カフェを運営しているアンドレとトモヤが毎週自分たちの周りで起きたことや海外のニュースについて英語と日本語でカジュアルに話している番組です。So, some people say English learned in junior high school doesn't help with real-life conversation. Is it that true?
I don't think so, because actually I taught English in junior high school for about 7 years. And it's true that although the way that students are taught isn't focusing on conversational English, however, they do learn all the basic grammar that they need to know in order to have a conversation. So from a structural point of view, like it is necessary to understand the basics of grammar. So in that way, yes, it is helpful, I think. However, I don't think most junior high school students get enough speaking time.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah. So this is actually kind of a topic recently in Japan. We mentioned at the top of the episode in the intro that we look at Kaigai news, but actually today we're looking at news from Japan. So just to summarize the article that I read that kind of was surprising, 42,000 junior high school students in the third grade from 500 schools across Japan were given an English speaking test. And they were given this English speaking test by the Monbu Kagakusho. Monbu Kagakusho, is that how you say it? Monbu Kagakusho, okay. What did I say?
Mambu.
No, Monbu. So the students watched a video about environmental issues, and then they were asked 5 questions, and they recorded their responses and sent their responses back to the Monbu Kagakusho. So I don't know who graded these recorded responses from the students, but apparently only 12.4% of the students were able to answer correctly. But more shockingly, 60%, more than 60% couldn't answer even a single question correctly.
Oh, no.
So they only had 5 questions. They couldn't even answer one.
Oh, my God. That's too low.
That's very low. Yeah, 12.4% is very low.
But the question is about environment issues, right?
Yes.
So I was wondering if even adult can answer these questions.
Actually, yeah. I kind of thought, well, like this newspaper article, I think it was Japan Today was publishing this article. I kind of wonder, like, to just randomly ask students to watch a video that they don't understand and then ask them questions about the video and their thoughts about the topic is kind of mean in a way.
Right.
If it's something they haven't studied and they don't know the vocabulary for, they haven't learned the vocabulary.
Yeah.
It seems a bit unfair to ask them about this.
Yeah, to me, to answer like global warming or some sort of things is very difficult.
Right. Because not only do you need to know the English and like the special words, you need to understand science also.
Right.
Like, you know, to understand like earth sciences and chemical science. So it's actually kind of a heavy topic for third graders, I think.
Yeah.
So the reason like this was in the news is because the previous time students were tested was back in 2019. So what is that, 4 years ago? At that time, their correct answer rate was 30.8%. So from going from 30.8% down to 12.4%, it's a huge decrease.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's kind of shocking.
Do you know, is it the same question?
I don't think so. I think it's different questions. And so the Ministry of Education, the Monbusho, was saying that the test was difficult. And because the tests are different, it doesn't necessarily mean that the students' English ability has necessarily dropped. I think the test questions just weren't suitable. Perhaps. We don't know. Like, I haven't seen this test, so I don't actually know. Like, I can't comment because I haven't actually seen the test or the video.
Yeah. So this news could be just a clickbait.
Yes.
Or maybe true. We don't know.
Right. Well, it got a lot of attention with the foreign community here in Japan, like people like myself, like English teachers or instructors who live here in Japan, because this is what we do, right? For a living, we try to get students to communicate naturally in English. That's what we want to do. And then to hear that it's not working and the rates are going down, it's kind of depressing. And so this article got a lot of attention from the foreign teaching community, the foreign education community here. But like you said, like it could be clickbait. So we kind of need to think about this sort of news with a grain of salt.
そうですね。まあ、
Yeah.
実際こういうニュースって割と毎年のように出てるんですよね。
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
今年の英語のテストはこんなに成績が悪かったみたいなニュースが割と出てるんで毎年。ありますよね、確かにね。だから、I
kind of have to wonder though, because like Japan, the government has a complex about the English ability of Japanese people. And I think they try to compare Japan with Korea and China. And they'll say things like, yeah, the Chinese success rate is much higher, or the Korean success rate is much higher.
So like if you only believe the newspaper articles or in like clickbaity titles, Japan's English skills for junior high school or high school students are getting lower and lower each year. So eventually it's gonna be like a zero. It's gonna be like a no any student at the age of 12 or 80 can't speak English at all. That doesn't realistic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not really realistic. It's not really realistic. Yeah.
その毎年英語で点数が下がってるってもうゼロになっちゃうから、それはありえないんだけど、ありえない。まあそこだけを見てるとね、ニュースだけを見ていると。でも実際はまあ上がったり下がったりなんで。
Yeah, it does go up and down. It does fluctuate. But the other thing is like all of the teachers like myself, the foreign teachers who are working here in Japan, one thing we notice is that Japanese teachers are notoriously strict for marking every single little mistake off. So, for example, if I asked you, what's your name? What would you answer?
I'm Tomoya.
Okay, you'd probably get Batsu for that, right? You should answer, my name is Tomoya, right? So like this, like what you said is perfectly fine English. It's grammatically correct. It's communicative. I understood what you said. You understood my question. I understood your answer. But by Japanese teacher standards, that'd be a big boo-boo. You didn't use the formula, my name is. Right?
My name is Tomoya.
Right. So you can't say I'm Tomoya or, Tomoya. You can't just say Tomoya. Right? So... 名字を使いなさいみたいになっちゃうからね。Right. So you have to kind of guess, like when the government is saying only 12.4% of students pass the test, like who checked the answers?
まあね。
Were they tested by a Japanese really strict teacher or someone who actually can gauge communicative skills? You don't know, right?
そうだから決まった形式で答えるだけだったら
That's not real communication.
ね、それはコミュニケーションじゃない。
Yeah, that's right.
だから覚えるためのゲームになっちゃうね。
Yeah. So another topic, can you remember like when you were back in school, like junior high, for example?
はい。
Did you have any foreign English teachers at your school?
Yes, we had.
Okay. Did you talk to the teacher?
I think I did a few times, but I didn't have enough skills to communicate.
Okay.
So yes, I have only limited ability. Okay. And I wasn't sure I was really able to communicate with ALT teachers.
ALT, okay. Okay, so you had like kind of a lack of confidence or...
So, and I was hesitated too.
Okay.
So, 距離感があるよね、ALT の先生とはね。
Sure, because, the culture's different, the language is different, the teacher looks very different from you. Yeah, and like a lot of students are shy. A lot of students have like complexes at that age, like about their looks or whatever, their friends or, kind of not always outgoing. But I just wonder, like, I hear that a lot of schools nowadays don't have ALTs. They don't have native English teachers. And so I don't know if that's a reason, but that might be one reason why communicative skills are going down, because people don't actually have an opportunity to talk to people in English.
That's a big issue.
Yeah.
Is it the reason government cutting down the budget for each schools, or?
I don't think it's the national government. I think each prefecture in each city decides how they want to spend their educational money. A lot of cities in Okayama anyway have cut out that part of the educational budget. So that is actually one reason. Yeah, it's money reasons.
ALT の先生と話すことで英語を上達するかって言ってそれはあんまりないかな。
Yeah, actually that's probably true. Why do you think so though?
だって話すって言ってもがっつり話すわけじゃないじゃん、その ALT の先生と。
True.
マンツーマンでレッスンしましょうじゃないじゃん。
No, it's like, hi, how are you today? Oh, I like your shirt. It's like basic, really, really basic things.
そう、それででも他の生徒も何十人もおるわけやん。
Yeah.
そうみんなもできればそういう話したいよねって思うわけじゃん。
Yeah.
みんなじゃないと思うけど。
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, I was in ALT in junior high school for about 7.5 years. I don't remember every single student. I'll be honest. I tried to. At the time, I probably did remember every single student, but I don't remember them all now. But I do have like a fairly decent group of students who still communicate with me. Several of them are listening to our podcast. Thank you very much. You know who you are. Several of them have visited us here at the cafe, or, they live here in town and I see them often. And whenever I meet them, we speak in English.
それはすごいことで、多分女性の方がそういう関係を作りやすいんだろうね。
Maybe, but some of them are boys too.
あ、そうなんだ。
Yeah, young men. They're not boys now, they're men. Yeah, some of them like were young men.
Okay.
But I think even though like we didn't like gatsuri shaberu in English at the time, like we made a relationship that caused them to be perhaps interested in English, and they used it. Maybe they were naturally going to use English in their life anyway. But then seeing that they could communicate with someone in English maybe was interesting for them. I don't know. I tried.
でも僕も英語に本格的に興味を持ったのはやっぱ大人になってからやん。学生の頃はちょっと興味あるなぐらいだったけど、だからそこよね。だよね、そういう友達っていうか、外国人の友達が欲しいともあんまりね、学生の時に思ったことなかったし。
Right.
だから
It's kind of mendokusai at that point. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
で、今、学生の、高校生とかね、中学生で、グローバルだって言って、勉強して、英語が上手に喋れてる人を見ると、すげえなと思って。なんか、すげえな
But like it's not all of the students, right? It's a very, 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 very low percentage of students who are at that level where they can be like global citizens, actually.
Right. It's interesting to see the score. Like the news article says average reading and listening scores were over 50%, which is kind of high.
That is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
そうだから英語の読み書きはできるってことだよね。
Yeah, 読み書き listening も悪くないね。
listening も悪くない。But
writing was 24%, which is still not too horrible.
そうね。
That's not horrible.
The speaking が極端にダメってことか。
Yeah. Yeah.
で、まあでも、喋る必要がないってことなんだよね。学校の中では。
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And opportunity is also very, very, very limited if it exists at all.
そりゃそうだよ。やっぱりその日本の学校のシステム的には読み書き
Yes.
が重視されるから、
Yes,
そり
for
ゃそうだ
test
よね。
taking and exam taking to get into, good high schools and good universities. So that's what they're trying to prepare the students for is to go on to like higher levels of education, not necessarily to be global citizens, not necessarily to be able to communicate in English. That comes later, I think, like you said, like once you get into adulthood or once you go to university and you kind of already have a base of good grammar and good vocabulary, then you can start working on communication, perhaps.
Is it a problem of education system in Japan?
Honestly, yes, there probably is. Because look at who's in the Monbukagakusho. What kind of people are there?
I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, it's older people.
はい。
It's men.
はい。
And it's people who have probably very little experience with education. Or with anything in the real world. I mean, that's rude, but it's true. So like the people deciding like how students and what students study have probably never raised a child. They've probably never gone through the educational system themselves. Like they've never maybe they have, I don't know. But they're elderly people who are kind of out of touch with reality.
でもそれにしてもさっきのグローバルイシューだったっけ
Yeah.
何だったっけエンバイオメントイシューか環境問題についてスピーキングをしろっていうのはかなりレベルが高いよね。
Yeah, I think that's kind of beyond the scope of junior high school students. I mean, they might study that sort of thing. I don't know. They might study that in other classes in like, science class or, something like that, or, social studies. They might study this. I don't know. But then to study it in English is a different question. And I don't think it's in their English textbooks. But also, like, the other point is, in America, I mean, all countries are different. Every country has, like, a different educational system or setup and the process. In America, we don't study foreign languages until high school. In junior high, we don't even study foreign language at all, unless you go to some kind of special school. So, like, if you asked an American kid, hey, take a French test, or hey, take a test in Japanese, I'm sure their score would be much lower than 12%.
それはね、間違いないですね。
Yeah. I mean, I studied French for 2 years in high school, and if someone had given me a speaking test, I would have failed miserably. I couldn't speak French after 2 or 3 years. No way.
それで環境問題話してください。
Yeah, I'd be like, I mean, I wouldn't be able to say anything.
だから、まあ、やってることが分かんないっていうのも一つあるよね、問題として。
Yeah.
このテスト。
Yeah.
Who is this one for? Is this for like a super rich people's child?
I don't think so. I think it's not actually, but the government wants you to think, Japanese people can't speak English. We need to study more. We need to keep up with China. We need to keep up with America. We need to keep up with Korea. We need to keep up with Europe. But actually, the test scores in China are higher, but it is exactly that. They're testing the wealthy children. They're not testing Ippanjin. They're testing like the elite children only. Yeah, so in China's case, they choose who takes their national exams or their international exams.
そうだからでもアンジェラさんの言うことがまあ当たってるとするとこのニュースというかこのテストはベイトとして使われたわけですね、餌として。
Yeah, to get people to try to study more, I think.
っていうかまあそうね、それと予算をバジェット、
Yeah.
to get more budget
Maybe, yeah.
I have a question. Do we necessarily to speak English in our daily life?
You know, that's a really good question. I was going to bring this up too. When I was a student, I worked in a couple of very, very small towns. One was an agricultural community. One was a fishing community. And actually, quite a few of the students in the fishing community came up to me and said the same thing. Like, I hate English. I'm never going to use this in my life. And I'm like, what do you say to someone like that? Like, they know they're going to grow up and be fishermen, or they know they're going to grow up and be farmers, or they know they're going to grow up and, take over their family business that does not involve English. What do you say to students like that? Just ganbatte ne? I mean, there's nothing else you can say, right? They probably don't need English in their life. It probably won't affect their future. So if they get a low test score, who cares? It doesn't really affect their life to not be able to speak English. Yeah.
英語が好きだからね頑張ってる人もいるし
Sure, and that's fabulous, yeah.
全然英語が必要じゃないという人ももちろんいるわけだから
That's right.
そこは尊重してだからテストでどうのこうのっていうのはやっぱり別にそういうなんかプロパガンダっていうかなんかわかんないけど
Yeah, it is kind of that way though. I mean, honestly, I don't think it is necessary for all people. Not everyone needs to be fluent in English.
だよねだから
And it doesn't really, I mean, depending on the type of work you're wanting to do, it may or may not affect your opportunities. But,
なんだかなっていうニュースですけど
I just brought this up because, people see these articles and they panic. But it's like, well, no, I mean, don't panic. Take a good look at like what's really behind this. What's the motive? Who made this test? How was it scored? Who scored it? And what is the point? What is the point of having this test? And what is the point of publishing this data? Everything needs to be kind of thought about critically. What is the motive of this?
Yeah. そうね
So rather than just read the article like, dahen, think about like the deeper issues, the deeper questions. This is critical thinking, like basic critical thinking.
だね
Yeah, just don't take it at surface level.
英語をね勉強しておくことで何かその仕事とかビジネスでなんかいいチャンスがある場合もあるから
もちろん、
まあ全然役に立たないことはないかもしれないし、今は必要なくてもある日突然必要になったりする時もあるからね
Maybe.
なんかねそういう話はたまに聞くよね。なんか仕事が部署が変わって急に英語が勉強しなくちゃいけなくなったんですっていうで3ヶ月後になんか出張に行くんですアメリカにって大丈夫かっていう
Yeah, but then like, everyone has a base, right? Everyone studied basic grammar in junior high school and high school. So then you just have to kind of build on that base. Yeah.
これ以前ボツにしたエピソードの中で話したこともあったんですけども、
Okay.
日常会話とビジネス英会話どっちが難しいかみたいなね。
そういう話題あったっけ？
まあなんか簡単に話したことがあったんですけど、僕らのねこのお店に来てくださった方で、実際に何十年もアメリカとか海外でビジネスをしてきたまあジムさんっていうある方がいるんですけども、その人がねビジネス英語の方が簡単だよっていうことは決まってるし、相手は理解しようとしてくれるから、理解しないと先に進めないからね。
That's actually true because like the topic is quite limited. Like you're talking about this business or this function or this machine,
そうこの機械を例えば買いますか買いませんか、買わないんだったら値段安くしますかしませんかっていうまあ一個一個が形が決まってるじゃん。フォーマット。だからまあで相手も自分の言ってることをね理解してくれようとするし、でその一歩そのビジネスの席から外れるともう話が通じないから
あの人でも通じるけれど、まあでもわかる。There's actually a lot of tour guides in Japan who are the same way. Like their English is brilliant. They've studied how to guide. foreigners in Japan, and they can do that as long as you're talking about like the history of a certain area that they're familiar with. Once you get into Nichijou Kaiwa, like, hey, I'm hungry, where can I, like, then they don't understand. They don't understand. They only know the history of the castle or the history of this, this battlefield. They can't do conversation. There's a lot of people like that, and that's fine too.
まあそれもそれでいいし、スピーキングって言ってもね、いろいろあるからさ。
Yeah. 日常会話 is actually very difficult.
そうですよね。
Because the topics are random and there's so many topics.
そうなんですよね。
Right? When you're doing like only business or only medical or only, a certain type of English, your vocabulary is specialized, yes, but it's also limited. You don't have to remember so much.
まあ僕もオーストラリアに行った時に、結構その、まあ日本人の友達はそんなにいなかったんですけど、まあ聞いた話によったりすると、日本人で床屋さんで働いてる人がいて、その人、まあ僕日本人にカットしてもらうのがよかったから、まあ、途中からそこに行ったんだけど、それまでいろんな国の人にカットしてしまって髪がボロボロになっちゃってでまあその日本人のとこに行き出したら、その女性の店員の人がやっぱりその英語を勉強しようと思って美容師で日本でやってて、オーストラリアでやってきたけど、もうなんか言うことが聞くことがいつも同じなんです。だから英語伸びないんですって。そりゃそうだよね。カットどうしましょうか、こうしてこうしてこうして OK って。
Yeah, that's probably true. Like you're quite limited if you get into a field and you don't go beyond that field.
そうね。だから意外とまあそういうのもあるよっていうね。もう一回また戻るけど、やっぱそのグローバルウォーミングとかエンバイロメントイシューなんてものは、そのリサーチャーでもない限り話せないからね。It's extremely difficult.
I think it'd be difficult for junior high students. Yeah, I'm just imagining like when I was a teacher, could my students talk about global warming or environmental issues? I don't think so. Not in English anyway. I mean, in Japanese, sure, but not in English anyway. Yeah, that's a bit of a high hurdle to have to jump over. Yeah. So anyway, just like when you guys see this kind of news, don't like, Japan is dumb. Take it with a grain of salt. Don't freak out and just, keep plodding along like little by little, step by step, You'll get there eventually.
Yes. ちょっと今日難しい話をしたんですけども。
ちょっとね。
Okay. ちょっと皆さんに聞きたいんですけども。What makes speaking English so hard for you?
Right. We want to know if you have any difficulties, like what is difficult to overcome or what have you really struggled with?
そう、英語でちょっと難しいっていうところをね、教えてください。
興味あります。
英語のボキャブラリーが覚えられないとかね、なかなかスムーズにペラペラ話せないとか、ちょっとリスニングが得意じゃないとかね、あると思いますが。
Yeah, I'm very curious.
Okay, shall we finish up this episode?
Sure. I hope this was interesting for everyone. That's all for this episode. But if you like our audio podcast, be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening right now. Also, please rate and review us.
And check out our new series called After Show. It's a bit more casual and a bit more personal and a bit more fun.
All right. This is CrossTalk signing off, bringing you English your way every week.
Keep listening and keep shining.
Bye.